Welcome to the Upward Running Podcast, where faith fuels your fitness journey.
Welcome back to the Upward Running Podcast. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the trail where you can in turn inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. Well, I am your running host, Dean Thompson, and I am coming to you actually from my office. So this will be a little bit different. And we're going to do something a little bit different today, but we're going to talk about how sometimes our lives have what look like strong coincidences, I'll say, but they're not coincidences, or at least I don't think they're coincidences. We're going to talk about that. We're going to share this story that is full of these seeming coincidences, and then we're going to talk about them in the context of what that is. And you can judge for yourself whether or not you believe there is such a thing as coincidence when we get through with it. And then, do you ever compare your running to other people's running? I'm going to talk about why that is a bad idea. And I am here once again, just after the holidays. We just got through with the New Year's holiday as I'm recording this. And the holidays are such a magical time. And I love the holidays. And when we have to get back to doing regular stuff, don't you lament the holidays when you get through? I know I do. I remember back years ago when I was in high school, we had a race on New Year's night. And it would start at 10 minutes till midnight, and it was an ETA run. ETA stands for Estimated Time of Arrival. The way that it worked is you would write down the time that you thought you were going to run for this race before you started, and you could run it as fast or slow as you wanted to, but you couldn't carry a watch with you. And so that was a very fun race to run. The person closest to the right time was the winner. And the way that it worked was the entry fee was an old T-shirt from another race. And so everybody laid out their T-shirts, and when the race was over, the person who won not only got a little bit of a trophy or something like that, but you got first pick of the T-shirts. And some people would bring in some pretty cool stuff. So anyway, it was a fun race. That's the way I spent New Year's, several New Year's. And it was a lot of fun. The New Year's ETA run. I'd love to have another one of those one day. It'd be fun. Well, our post of the week this week comes from Brooks Wachs. He says, sometimes you just have to make it work. This was from Strava. He says, been dealing with a migraine all day. So that means when you have a run to get in, you wait until it gets cloudy, the sun starts going down, and you run in sunglasses even though it isn't sunny. You just make it work. Now, doing what it takes is one of the things, it's kind of a mantra for a lot of runners, right? I know there are a lot of people out there that say, this is crazy. Why would you put yourself through that? Why would you go out there and try to run in a temperature, or, if it's a bad weather, or in this case, a migraine? Why would you put yourself through that? But I completely understand this mindset. And I think that these days like this, I think they make you tougher. I think it makes you tougher because you're going through something that is harder than it should be. And I think when you make it through those days, when you do that run when you don't feel like it, when you have to do something a little bit extra to get it in, I just think that makes it more likely that when it comes race time and it really starts to hurt and you really want to slow down, I think that days like this are the ones that help you push through those things, because you've already made tough decisions in the past. Making that tough decision of continuing to press on, it's a little bit easier because you've been through it. Now, having said that, I am not saying that you're a wimp if you don't do this. It is completely all up to you. We all have different motivations and different reasons. And if you want to not run with a migraine, completely understand. I think that's the majority of people. But if you want to run with a migraine, then that's okay too. And here's what I think. we shouldn't give somebody a hard time for not running through something like that, but we also shouldn't give people a hard time for doing it either. I've had people give me a hard time a number of times over the years for maybe running through a particular, maybe an injury or something like that. We should give grace on both sides. We're really quick to give grace to somebody who doesn't push through, but we're often not okay with giving grace with somebody who does. And we should give grace on both ends of that spectrum, I believe. Our run of the week comes from Stephen Havard. This one is another Strava post that says, Summit Showdown 10-mile trail race. He says, woo, this course is a beast. Around 1,400 feet of elevation, 5th overall, super pleased, especially with never training on hills anymore with these kinds of inclines. This race required it all. Got fatigued in ways I never really am. And so he runs this 10-mile race and did a great job with this race. And congratulations, first of all, Stephen, on a great accomplishment. This does not sound like a race I would want to run. There is a race that's probably similar to this. I run a race called the Wachs Trail Race. The reason why I love the Wachs race is because it's handicapped based on your age. So the older you are, the earlier you start. And they assume that 25 to 29-year-old men are the fastest, and then everything is adjusted from there. And so that's a fun race because you get to either start early and hopefully hold people off from catching you, or you start out later and you catch people along the way. And it's a lot of fun to do that race. But it has the first mile's flat, and then the next 2 miles basically are uphill. I mean, it's a long grind to the top, almost to the top of Lookout Mountain. And then boom, you come down, and then the last mile's flat again. It's a 6.7 mile race. Anyway, I've run that one, so I guess I shouldn't say I wouldn't run this race, but it is a great thing to get out there and run in the woods, I think, sometimes. Although I prefer the roads. He goes on to list a few people that he met in the race on this post, and he talks about how great it was to meet these people. That's one of the greatest things about running races, and the reason why I wanted to include this post, or one of the reasons, was because it seems like we meet somebody new at almost every race, and those relationships that we build are really, really cool. All that discussion we've had over the years about the running community and how robust the running community is all comes home to roost when you think about it in the context of this particular post, because we runners love to support runners, and we get that opportunity a lot, particularly at these races, right? Our trivia question from last week was, what is the number one most popular New Year's resolution? Now, you knew there had to be a reason why I would ask that question on a podcast that is about running and fitness, right? So, of course, at the top of the list of the top, I'm gonna go over the top 10 and talk about these. The first one is exercise more or start a consistent workout routine. That is the number one New Year's resolution. And so many people will start a new exercise routine on January 1st. A lot of people are done by January 8th. But a lot of people start on January 1st. The second most popular one is to eat healthier and improve overall diet quality. Another one that is related to our fitness and our health. The third one is like that as well. Lose weight in a sustainable long-term way is number 3. And that is another thing. So the first 3 New Year's resolutions, what we do as runners, are related to the first 3 most popular New Year's resolutions. And I think that's pretty cool that we have something that is that desirable to do. So that means there's so many people that want to do it. Why aren't more people doing it, right? Number 4 is to save more money and or spend less money. Number 5 is get organized at home, work, or digitally. The next one is learn a new skill, hobby, or subject, like a language or some kind of professional skill, something like that. And then quit smoking or reduce other unhealthy habits like excessive drinking or, any kind of bad habit. The next one is spend more time with family and friends and deepen relationships. That one, I'm surprised, isn't a little bit higher on the list. And then travel more or seek out new experiences and adventures. A lot of people like to travel, and I love to travel, but traveling more is a New Year's resolution for some people. And then finally, number 10, read more books throughout the year. We can learn so much by reading books, and whatever those books are, those are the top 10 most popular New Year's resolutions. I have contemplated probably almost all of these over this past week or 2 weeks of the year. I always kind of reflect back toward the end of the year, and I think back at what's gone on during the year, and I think about what I'm going to do going forward into the year. I obviously do that from a running standpoint, and so I try to look back and think about what went wrong, what went right, what do I want to keep, what do I want to throw out, what are my goals for the upcoming year, which is a little bit like a resolution, but not exactly. I think a goal is one thing. A resolution is something a little deeper than a goal. The example might be that a goal is I want to run 7 minutes and 8 seconds for the 2,000 meter steeplechase. That's a goal. That's not really a New Year's resolution. But a New Year's resolution might be I want to run less but more intense mileage this upcoming year. That's more of a resolution because it's kind of a lifestyle change. So that's the way I look at the difference between a goal and a New Year's resolution. And I hope if you have made a New Year's resolution, I hope you're still on it, and I hope that you're successful in carrying that through.
Upward Sports equips churches to run self-sustaining sports ministries in their communities. Whether you're a sports fanatic or on staff at a church, Upward Sports will give you all the tools you need to run a first-class sports ministry that allows you to reach families in your community. Upward Sports offers basketball, soccer, flag football, cheerleading, volleyball, baseball, and softball through league and camp offerings. At Upward Sports, we want to help your church make a difference and give you increased opportunities to share the gospel. Learn more today at upward.org. That's upward.org.
Okay, I thought it would be a good idea to talk about nutrition, at least in a general way, at the beginning of the year. So, what do we eat as runners and walkers to fuel what we do? What should we eat to fuel what we do? So I went to AI and I asked AI, what should we eat? And so this is what it said. Run nutrition focuses on carbohydrates for fuel, protein for muscle repair, and hydration with timing crucial. Eat carbs, protein before for energy, simple carbs during long runs that are over 90 minutes for quick boosts, and a carb protein mixed for post-run within 30 to 60 minutes to replenish stores and rebuild muscles, experimenting to find out what works best for you. That's really important, is you have to look and see what works best for you. So pre-run, meaning 1 to 3 hours before running. Eat easily digestible carbs for sustained energy with a little protein and less fat or fiber. Those things tend to stop us up and make it tough. Examples might be oatmeal with berries, a banana with nut butter, whole wheat toast with jam, bagel, a rice bowl with eggs, something like that. And of course, you want to start hydrating early, so you want to make sure that you are topped off before you go out to run. You don't want to have too much in you. You don't want to have to go to the bathroom when you run, but you do want to be topped off from a hydration standpoint. During a run, while you're running, for runs that are less than 60 to 90 minutes, just simple carbs, electrolytes to maintain kind of blood sugar, like sports drinks, energy gels, and things like that are good for runs that are over 60 minutes or 90 minutes. You want to do that. For runs that are less than 60 minutes, you don't really need anything to eat or to drink. Now, if it's really, really hot outside, you may need some water or something, or even a sports drink with some electrolytes in it during that run. But unless it's really hot outside, 60 minutes, you're going to be okay, especially if you started off well hydrated to begin with. If you started off low, of course, then it's a different story. Post-run, within 30 to 60 minutes after a run, you want to replenish your glycogen or your carbohydrate stores, and you want to start repairing muscle. And how do you do that? Well, you have something that has a ratio of like 3 to 4 to 1 carb to protein ratio. That's kind of ideal. So you might try, I've mentioned before, chocolate milk is a good thing. It has that mix in it automatically. A smoothie with some fruit and protein powder is a good option. Chicken with rice, yogurt with fruit, things like that. Something not too heavy, not too light, not just a snack, but something like that really helps. And then for daily nutrition, our carbohydrates should be about 60 to 70% of what we eat. Now, there's a lot of people out there who are anti-carbohydrate. Be careful with that, because as runners, you need carbohydrates for fuel. Whole grains, fruits, starchy vegetables are good for primary fuel. And then protein. You want to eat lean meats, fish, beans, eggs, those kinds of things, because protein helps with muscle repair. You want about 15 to 20% of your calories to come from protein. And then healthy fats. About 15 to 20% should come from healthy fats. Things like avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, things like that. Some of those things can help inflammation in your body if you have an issue with that. And again, hydration, can't mention it enough. Drink water consistently throughout the run, or the day, not just when you run, because obviously you do want to drink sometimes when you run, but you want to be hydrated 24 hours a day, because here's what happens. Your body works better. Everything in your body works better. Your immune system works better. Everything in your body works better when you are hydrated. It's these things are fairly simple. A lot of people want to make nutrition kind of a complicated thing, but it's really not. Here's some tips. Don't eat a lot from boxes and bags. Avoid things that come in boxes and bags, in other words. Eat food that is as close to the way God made it as possible. That's why organic is a little bit better than non-organic, right? And then if you'll just do those two things, provided you eat the right amount of those things, you'll probably improve your diet and be much better off. So there's some nutrition advice at the beginning of the year. All right. Well, I like this story. We all think about coincidences, and this story is a little bit about coincidences. It comes from Darian Rowles, and the title of it is Pointing in the Right Direction. I didn't know how God communicated with me, but I discovered it can take various forms. It wasn't until later in life that I started to piece together my signs. I was always getting significant signs pointing me in the right direction. More specifically, it was a letter, not the kind you read, but the type used to form words. The letter P has always planted me exactly where I need to be. My earliest memory is one of my first jobs at a place called Ponderosa, where I was a waitress. Back when you sat on one side of the restaurant for smoking and the other side for non-smoking. It was interesting, to say the least, especially for a 16-year-old. My high school boyfriend's last name started with the letter P. At 17, my marketing teacher got me a job at a party store. From there, I went to school and became a phlebotomist, and then on to more school and became a paralegal. Then worked for a litigation attorney whose name was Petty's. Life led me into the work of private investigations in Pickering, Ohio. For a minute, I worked retail at Pier 1 Imports, then went on to own a photography business that allowed me to work around my children's busy schedules. Then went on to become a personal trainer and a Pilates instructor. My personal training education was in Powell, and my Pilates education was through a company called Power Pilates. I used my run wellness retreats and host networking events through the trademark name Power Chicks. During the pandemic, I sold the name, and the income carried me through that year. After acting and improv classes, I landed a position as a co-host and host role on 2 TV programs, and the production studio was located on Prestige Boulevard in my hometown. The first program led me to volunteer for a kids program where I helped lead fun activities for a select group. The children gave me pure joy, and it was called Path to Purpose. A few more peas to paint the picture. My youngest son was born during Passover. One of my dearest friends is a pastor from Pickering who baptized me at 38. Another close friend lives in the first house I lived in as an adult, and her last name starts with the letter? Well, you already know. The list goes on. My favorite singer since high school is Tom Petty. My children all attended a rural school in the town of Pleasantville, the same town where my husband works on a 210-year-old family farm. Our family adopted a donkey who had already been named Pedro. My last educational commitment was a psychology program for coaches where I learned all aspects of the field, a dream come true. Today, I use my voice for personal development and growth and have learned to be still so I can see where the signs point. And I recently purchased a rental property that sits off a main road called Pierce Avenue, 2 doors down from my childhood home. Today, as I submit this article, I am preparing words of wisdom as a judge at a middle school for the Power of Pen creative writing competition. Sometimes the path is clear, and sometimes you may be walking a while until you see some light at the end of the tunnel. If you slow down, you'll see the signs because they are always there, sometimes hiding in plain sight, pointing you in the right direction. I love that. I love the idea of thinking about things in this way. I've done a lot of this myself. I thought about this from a biblical standpoint. We were told by the prophets that Jesus would be the Prince of Peace, our high priest, and the propitiation to reconcile us to God. Jesus' blood is given as the Passover lamb during the Passion as the pardon for our sins. His promise is the only way we can have peace through his purity and perfection. He told the man on the cross next to him that he would have a presence with him in paradise. And if we will have patience and perseverance through prayer and pleading, we will find his power and peace too. Is that too much? Maybe. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. The scripture comes from Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not rely on your own understanding. Think about him in all your ways and he will guide you on the right paths." What's the hardest part of this verse? I don't think it's trusting in the Lord. I think trusting in the Lord is not that difficult to do. I think that it can be difficult. But I think the hardest part of it is not relying on my own understanding. This verse is a good reason why I like the CSB translation. This was the CSB translation. I like the way that it says, do not rely on your own understanding. We normally hear that as lean not on your own understanding, but I like the idea of do not rely on your understanding. It seems more to the point in our modern day language. And I really like that idea of not relying on my own understanding. And then I like to think about him in all your ways, the way that it says that. Whatever you're doing, do it with God in mind. What is that thing that you know you shouldn't do, but you still do it? Maybe reacting to traffic in a bad way. Well, what happens if I'm reacting to bad traffic and I'm wanting to shout through my windows at somebody who can't even hear me, by the way? What happens if I think about the goodness of God while that is happening? How would that change the way that I looked at reacting to that same traffic? Suddenly that traffic doesn't seem so pressing, does it? It changes our perspective. And so if we are constantly thinking, as it said, thinking about him in all your ways, then it really changes the way that we react to things, doesn't it? Scripture elsewhere notes that there is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. This shows how our judgments can be disastrously wrong. And so leaning on our own understanding, obviously, doesn't usually end well, or very often doesn't end well. I shouldn't say it doesn't usually, very often doesn't. And then it talks about making your path straight. And that doesn't mean easy. I think about that when I think about the idea of making your path straight, and the Bible telling us that sometimes the straight path is through a swamp, right? And that means a difficult slog. And sometimes we're going to have to go through that swamp. And then there's other times where God's going to put us right on the superhighway, and that's the direct line between here and where we want to be, or where He wants us to be. And either way, we need to be ready to travel that path, whatever it looks like. Psalm 25:4 says, "Show me the right path, O Lord. Point out the road for me to follow." I think the toughest part of this is that many times the path that we are on is not the one we want to travel. Right? When we say, God, show me the path, very often the path that He shows us is not the one we would choose. But we need to travel it anyway, because if that's the path that God has directed us down, then we know there's something good at the end of that path. And it's really difficult sometimes, though, because a lot of times that path curves a lot, and we can't see the end of that path. And so we just have to believe that there's going to be something beautiful at the end of that path. And sometimes He sends us down a path that's all sunshine and roses. That happens very often. But when we see the road looking rough, I think we have a tendency to look at that road and think, surely God doesn't want me to go down this scary road, right? He wants me to go down this nice, beautiful road. Surely I must have made a wrong turn. That's kind of what we think. But the truth is that we often need to go down those scary roads. And sometimes we get to go down the beautiful roads. But either way, there is always something beautiful in the end, at the end of that road. Psalm 119:105, "Your word is a lamp for my feet and a light on my path." So He guides us on the right path in Proverbs 3, which is the first scripture. Then He shows us the right path in Psalms 25, the second scripture. And then in this case, Psalms 119, He lights that path up, right? What a great picture and a great progression of scriptures. Now, it's like, if we have to go down a path, maybe it's a path that is strewn with Legos and we don't have any shoes on, and we need that light. And when we have that light, it becomes way less dangerous and way less uncomfortable than it would be without the light. And so that light becomes really important to light that scary path for us. Because if the path is lit and we can see where we're going, and we can tell that there's nothing immediately dangerous right there around us, it's a lot easier to take that next step, isn't it? But if you just stepped on a Lego and it's dark and you can't see it, it's really hard to take that next step. So lighting up that path is really, really important. I think about it like this. There's a path that I'll go and I'll run with sometime. Usually if I go and I run on this particular place, it's called Enterprise South. They're trails. And it's a network of trails, and there's many, many trails here. And I don't know my way around the place very well. And very often I will go to that trail and meet somebody there, and I always defer to them. I just say, okay, I want to run, let's run 6 miles. We'll agree to a distance, and let's say we run 6 miles. Well, that person knows a 6-mile route on those trails. I don't. If I went by myself and I went to try to run on that trail, I'm going to run in circles, and I'm going to misjudge, and I'm going to get back too soon and have to go back out for another mile or two, or I'm going to get lost and I'm going to run 8 miles instead of 6 miles. When I'm with somebody else and somebody else is guiding me along the way, then I will get what I want out of that day. Well, that's kind of the way it is with God. If we'll rely on Him to direct our paths, and it's just like going to Enterprise South, and God is there to direct the run. He knows what the right route is. And if I'll just follow Him, if I'll just run right beside Him, we'll get there. A question. Have you ever wondered about the coincidences in life? This has been a joke in my small group that I teach weekly. And it's been that way for years and years and years, probably going back over 20 years. This has been a joke. Every time we see something that looks like coincidence, we just kind of look at each other and we go, yeah, just coincidence, right? Because we know that's a joke. We know that a lot of times there are no such coincidences, that things are coordinated by God. Proverbs 16:9 says, "In their hearts human plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." We think a lot of times that we're finding our way on our own, but God is coordinating things in the background. Of course, there are coincidences. I'm not going to say there's no such word as coincidence. There certainly is. But I don't think they're the ones that involve when and where we are. I think God coordinates our movements from one place to the other. I think there are still some choices that we have to make often, that we have to choose which direction we go and when we go there. But I think God is working through all of that, and I think He's involved in our direction. Here's a silly example, okay? So the other day, the temperature was as high as it was going to be first thing in the morning. I don't usually run first thing in the morning, but because the temperature was going to drop throughout the day and it was going to get windier and windier and colder, and the wind chill was going to be really bitter in the afternoon, I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and run in the morning, get that over with. And I was watching it drop really quickly from the time I got up until the light came up. It was getting cold quick. So I did. That's what I did. I got up. I went to run earlier than usual. And it happened to be at the beginning of my recovery run week, or my recovery week, not my recovery run week, my recovery week. And so I really, really needed to run super easy this particular day. Well, while I'm out on my run, a good friend of mine who runs much faster than me, he texts me and says, "Hey, my flight's been delayed. You want to go for a run?" Now, if I had been at home, I would have went and run with him, and I would have regretted it because I probably would have run too fast. But what happened was I ran earlier so that I was out when he texted me, and I couldn't run with him. I know that sounds like such a minor thing, but I feel like God was helping to coordinate what I was doing so that it protected me or helped me do the things that I wanted to do. I'm just convinced that God coordinates circumstances to save me from myself very often, and I think this might have been one of those cases. Another question. Have you been someone who has seen the same signs over and over, but never put two and two together? I've talked before about how God was making it very clear that I needed to, I don't know if get out of the corporate world was the goal that God had for me, but His goal was definitely, He was definitely telling me loud and clear over and over again that I needed to leave the job that I was in. Now, I'm a very conservative person. I don't just leave jobs because I want to be secure in what I'm doing. And at this point in life, I really needed that security. And so God telling me, I need you to give this up was really difficult for me. I didn't know what to do. But again, He was making it clear over and over. He was speaking louder and louder each time. And eventually He made it impossible for me to ignore Him. Finally, I had to take the initiative and go and talk to folks and say, okay, this is enough, and I'm ready to be done with this. And we wound up coordinating a kind of a mutual agreement. Things worked out. And then, of course, I wound up working in ministry and working with running, and I was a college coach, and I've gotten a chance to do all these great things that I would not have gotten to do if I had not left that job. God had all of that planned ahead of time, and I just, again, the question is, have I been someone who sees the same signs but never puts two and two together? I don't know that it wasn't that I didn't put two and two together, but I didn't trust God enough to think that if I would just take this bold step, things would work out great. Now I can look back on that and see God's hand in it all, but it helps me also to look forward and realize that I really need to pay attention in the future as well and understand that God is coordinating these things and He has my best interest at heart if I will just listen to what He has to say, right? Another question. Have you been seeing signs that have always been there, pointing you in the right direction, but you didn't realize it until it was too late? With a question like this, I always look back to my mother. My mother, I would tell my mother how I felt about her, but I feel like I didn't do it enough. And then all of a sudden she was gone. And now it's too late. And now I can't tell her. You know what I would give to sit down and talk with my mother for 30 minutes or an hour? Oh my goodness. And we can't do it, obviously, but I would love to be able to do that, because I would love to say a lot of the things that I probably should have said, but never did say. It hurts when they're gone like that, and you lose the opportunity to do the thing that you wanted to do. I try these days not to let that kind of thing happen anymore, although it's really difficult. Even today, even knowing with that. Now, my father has just gone through some tough times, and I was a little more attentive knowing what I went through there. And so we go through these tough times, and they help us in the future, and that's what that has done to me. So if you appreciate somebody, let them know. There is not a lot worse than having unfinished business with somebody, if that's what you want to call it, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Don't let that happen. So if you've got somebody out there that you appreciate, make sure they know that you appreciate them. Upward running is the best way to stay motivated for your fitness and faith journeys. You get these weekly podcasts, but there's so much more. We have proven training plans available for you, whether you're just at the beginning of your fitness quest or you've been running for 20 years. We have something for everyone, and it doesn't matter where you are with God either. We have something for you there too. If you're not a member, join today at upwardrunning.com. It is the best value you'll find to fuel both your faith and your fitness. All right, I'm back. Don't forget to send in your story. We're always looking for stories because these stories are great, and we love to read them, and we love to talk about them, and we need to hear your story. So send that in. Go to upwardrunning.com and find the Submit Your Story tab and submit your story. It's very simple. And don't tell me you don't have a story. Everybody has a story. So I got this from Study Finds. I get a lot from Study Finds. I really like that website. Got a lot of interesting stuff on it. But this is, it says, doubt you'll meet a goal? Try doubting the doubt, researchers say. And this is what it says. The study suggests that acknowledging misguided negative thoughts can boost confidence. Upon encountering repeated failures or hurdles, it's normal for people to start questioning themselves. A nursing student who just failed their credit certification exam for the third time, for example. Once such uncertainties creep in, it's typical for doubt to grow and eventually impede progress and success altogether. Interesting research from The Ohio State University has a surprising suggestion for anyone running into a bout of self-doubt. Doubt your own doubts. Psychologist Patrick Carroll discovered that questioning the validity of your goal doubts can actually strengthen commitment rather than weaken it. While most research shows that doubting your goals leads straight to giving up, this study reveals a hidden escape route. Doubt your doubts and watch your commitment bounce back. This is very interesting. So they did a couple of studies that showed this, and we all know that if you doubt yourself, you're probably not going to be successful. Anytime that we go into anything with some doubt, it's usually a detrimental thing, right? For example, if you decide to do the couch to marathon plan, but you go into it and you've got lots of doubts up front, it's going to be difficult to follow through. Why? And the reason is because if we have doubts in our mind and then something comes up, and let's talk about, again, the Couch to Marathon program, you get in that and then all of a sudden a lot of life things happen and it derails you and you're like, see, I knew it. That's the way our brain works. It's confirmation, right? That we saw it coming. It's here. We knew we weren't going to be able to finish this thing. And so it's so easy to give up in that moment because we have confirmed that our doubt was real. But it turns out that if you do have doubts, there's a way to counteract those doubts. So Let's take that same person who's doing the Couch to Marathon. She has doubts. But she can look around and she can see that there are many other people that have gone through this Couch to Marathon program. And if those people can do it, why can't I? And what that is doubting your doubts, right? I am doubting because I'm saying, I don't see how I can possibly get through it. But then I look around and I realize other people have done it, and I look at it and think, wow. Well, if they can do it, then I should be able to do it too, which is doubting your doubt. And when you do that, it turns out that it can completely counteract that doubt. So you know what this tells me, right? This is why groups, this is why us doing things together, why community is so important. It's those groups and communities that give you the fuel for doubting your doubt very often, right? Mark 9:23 and 24 says, Jesus said to them, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. That's exactly what this father was doing in this story, right? He was saying that he believed, and Jesus said, well, if you can believe, then all things are possible. And the father is saying, I do believe, but I'm doubting my doubt. And I need to fully believe, and Jesus is helping him with his unbelief. This is classic doubting your doubt, right? So if you're doubting you can accomplish your goals this year, look around, find somebody else who is doing that thing, and say I can do it. That's a good comparison, right? That's not like bad comparison, which I'm going to talk about here in a minute. And so doubt your doubt, and maybe you'll get where you want to be. All right, it is a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something that I've written about the intersection between running and faith. Well, this was one of those stories that I wrote, and then I said, you know what? I kind of like that story. So this one is called 2 Copper Coins. Do you ever look at the accomplishments of others and feel discouragement? Do you find yourself watching the fast guy in your town, a smooth stride, effortless breathing, results splashed across social media, and wishing you could trade legs, lungs, or even lives with him? Somewhere between logging your own miles and scrolling through everyone else's, you believe the lie. What you're doing doesn't count as much as others. Picture an early Saturday morning at the local running trail. The parking lot is still half asleep, a thin mist hanging over the fields, and your car is one of the first to pull in. You sit for a moment with your hands on the steering wheel, watching your breath fog the windshield while your GPS watch searches for a signal. You feel the familiar tug of war inside, one side telling you to just run your own run, the other whispering the names and places of people who are faster, stronger, or more gifted than you. Soon more cars arrive. A small group clusters by the trail entrance, the fast runners. They joke about tempos and marathon goals, the numbers rolling off their tongues like a language you barely speak. You step out of your car and suddenly become aware of the fact that you're just hoping to finish today's run without walking. You nod, say good morning, and pretend not to notice the tiny voice inside saying you don't belong with them. But then another thought pushes back, quiet and stubborn. You're not here to be them. You're here to be better than you were yesterday. That is a different race entirely. You start warming up, your footsteps soft on the gravel. At first, the fast group pulls away like they always do, their bright shirts shrinking into the distance. Years ago, that sight would have stung. Today, you decide to look at it differently. Their pace does not measure your worth, and their gifts do not steal anything from what God has given you. You remember that the only fair standard for you is you. So you choose one simple goal. Run today's loop a little smoother than last week. Maybe a touch more controlled on the hills. Maybe just a bit steadier in your breathing. You remember that progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like holding your form when you're tired, or adding one more mile to the weekly total, or choosing to take a rest day so your muscles can rebuild. Even sitting at home with your feet up can be training if it's done with purpose instead of guilt. As your run settles into rhythm, your thoughts drift to a scene very different from your local trail, a crowded temple courtyard in Luke's gospel. There, wealthy people come forward with impressive offerings, bags that clink with coins, displays that draw admiring glances. Then a widow steps into view, almost invisible compared to the spectacle around her. She drops her 2 small copper coins, barely worth a penny, and nobody rushes to congratulate her. Yet Jesus calls his disciples over and points to her, not the big givers. She has given more, he says, because she gave what she had. That story suddenly feels less like a distant Bible lesson and more like a commentary on your Saturday run. The fast group blazing ahead with their God-given speed is not the problem. Their gifts are real, and they honor God by using them. But so do you. When you offer what you have, your slower miles, your limited time, your ordinary body that still laces up and shows up. In the kingdom of God, the size of gift matters less than the surrender of the heart behind it. By the time you reach the halfway mark, you are no longer thinking about who might be ahead of you on the trail. You're thinking about what it means to give your 2 copper coins in this moment. Maybe it means finishing the workout even though no one is watching. Maybe it means walking for a minute, not as a sign of failure, but as a wise choice that allows you to keep going. Maybe it means celebrating someone else's personal record without secretly letting it diminish your own steady progress. You turn for home, and the sun has climbed a little higher. Your watch beeps, another mile done. The pace is not spectacular, but it is honest. It reflects the sleep you got, the week you lived, the effort you are offering. You realize that the question is not, am I as fast as he is? The better question is, am I being faithful with what God has given me? That is something you can actually answer and act on. As you finish the run, you see that fast group again, stretching by their cars, comparing splits. You smile and wave, feeling no need to shrink back. Their talents do not cancel yours. Their calling does not erase your own. In a world obsessed with comparison and rankings, you quietly choose a different way to measure your life and your miles, not by the accomplishments of others, but by steady, grateful faithfulness with what you have been given. And in that choice, on the trail, at work, in your finances, in every corner of your life, you echo the widow with her 2 coins. You place your small offering into God's hands and trust that in his eyes, it matters more than you will ever know. Man, I've seen this many times over the years. People think they're inadequate because they can't do what others can do. I've had a lot of people talk to me and compare themselves to me as a runner, and it's not fair to do that. And of course, in this age of social media that we have today, we know too much about others, and it's too easy to compare ourselves to others. It used to be we didn't know that much about other people. Now we know everything. And the problem is what we see about others it's their highlight reel. It's not the. Is it real? Yeah, it's probably real, but you're only seeing the best parts. You're not seeing all the stuff behind the scenes. And it's sort of like a movie set where you see all the stuff that's going on in front of the camera, but in the background, there's taped on props and things that you don't see the tape, but it's there. And that's a sad thing because we should not be comparing ourselves to other people's highlight reel. So a lot of times we fret over simple things like running. Really? We're going to fret over running? We're going to worry about comparing ourselves to others from a running standpoint? I mean, how insignificant is running in the grand scheme of things, right? Anyway, I've always said that for me, being fast is fun. I'm not going to deny that being a faster runner is fun. But really, when I take a step back, and I look at it from a distance, I've got some trophies, I've got some medals, but what else do I have? It doesn't really add anything important to my life. Maybe I get to meet a few more people, but maybe not, because you'd be surprised at how many people are intimidated and they don't want to walk up to somebody who's a lot of people call a fast runner. And so I don't know that there's really any advantage. Again, at race time, when the gun goes off, certainly there's an advantage. And then once you hit the finish line, all the advantages vanish and there are no advantages. I'm convinced that we should do the best at whatever we do. And so, you know what the Bible says. It says, whether you eat, drink, or whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. So we should only be concerned with giving our 2 copper coins. What are our 2 copper coins? What can we contribute to what we are doing? If it's a 3-hour half marathon, then fine, do that. And don't worry about the guy who can run the 3-hour marathon, right? And I have experience on the other side of this too. So I talked about the side of being the faster runner, but there's another side of this too. There are times in social settings that I feel extremely inadequate, let's say, particularly when it's something that doesn't have anything to do with running. I am not a very good conversationalist, like many people are. And I'll tell you this one. I am terrible with names. And you want to know how bad I am with names? Here's how bad I am with names. So there was a lady one time that I worked with, and I talked with her every single day. Literally every day I walked by and she ran a machine, and I would stop by there and I would talk to her every single day. I knew her really well. I knew she had kids and a husband. I knew a lot about this lady. Well, one day I'm walking up with my wife and I'm walking up to the hospital, into the entrance of a hospital, and she's standing out in front of the hospital. And as we approach her, she looks at me and we start to talk a little bit. How you doing? And we make small talk. And she says, so are you going to introduce me? And I didn't know what to say. It was a really, really embarrassing thing because I could not remember her name. And this is somebody that I talked with literally every day. Not remembering names makes people think you don't care. Now, this is a situation that happened. Again, this was demoralizing to me. And how demoralizing was it? Well, I still remember it. And this was over 30 years ago. So this idea of not understanding, when we look at one thing, we look at running and we say, oh, Dean's got it together. He's this fast guy. Well, Dean's got other things. And again, on the highlight reels, I'm going to show the running stuff. I'm not going to show the being embarrassed because I couldn't remember this lady's name thing, right? Because that's the way that we show things to people on the outside. So I can feel pretty inadequate too. But just like the 3-hour half marathoner needs to get on that line with confidence no matter what, even if those guys that can run an hour and a half and they don't understand why somebody takes 3 hours to run that half marathon, it doesn't matter. We need to go into those situations with our 2 copper coins. I need to go into those social situations, whether I'm good at it or not, whether I can remember somebody's name or not. I just have to apologize and say, and you know what? A lot of people don't understand it. They don't understand how you can be so bad with names. And believe me, I've heard so many people tell me, yeah, I know I'm bad with names too. You don't understand. I used to, when I was coaching my college team, I would have my runners running by me and I couldn't remember their names as they ran by. Now, remember, these were ladies that I spent hours with every single day. I called them by name every single day. And anyway, but again, here's what I can't do. I can't avoid those situations just because I'm not good at them. I can't avoid going into situations and knowing that I'm going to have a hard time remembering somebody's name, or I'm going to have a hard time having a conversation with somebody. I need to go in there with my 2 copper coins and do the best I can with what I have. And so what is that thing for you? There's something out there that you have difficulty with, and we need to go in with our 2 copper coins, do the best we can with what we have. So I'll make a deal with you. I won't shy away from being in public social situations if you won't think less about yourself if you happen to be that 3-hour half marathoner. We got a deal? All right. At Upward Sports, we're all about helping you on your fitness journey, but we also want to support you on your faith journey as well. You can sign up today for the self-paced Bible in a Year Challenge and listen every day as I read through the entire Bible in 365 episodes. As a bonus, I also give you helpful tips of the day and finish with an encouraging quote in each episode. You must be an Upward Running member to participate in this exciting and edifying challenge. Sign up and start listening today. Every week I share a reason why running and or walking is so awesome. And this week it's great for New Year's resolutions, right? We talked about those top 3 New Year's resolutions, and this is a great way to work on all 3 of the top 3 all at the same time. So get out there, do your running, your walking, whichever it is that you like to do. And that will encourage you to eat better, which is at number 2. And then that is going to help you to lose that weight. So what a great way to deal with New Year's resolutions than to get out there and do some running. So I thought that this would be a good time to talk about the new year. What's coming up? What can we look forward to in the running world in this coming year? On the professional scene, I'm really looking forward to the World Cross Country Championships. They're in the United States this year in Tallahassee, Florida. For the first time in many years, I want to say it was it the 90s, the last time it was in the United States? It's not I think it's only been in the United States one other time. And so that it's not typical. And so this is a very special year. So pay attention to that. That's coming up. Actually, by the time this comes out, the World Cross Country Championships will have already been run. They're that close. And after that, there won't be that much this year, though, because we don't have any Olympics this year. We don't have any World Championships this year. We do have NCAAs, and NCAAs are always great. But NCAAs, especially in cross country, has just become the young East African championships nowadays. I think there were 5 in the top 30 that were from the United States. In the NCAA cross country championships this past year. Not that there's anything wrong with those folks. It just makes watching it a little bit different. So the one really, really bright spot that I see coming up in this year is to follow what Jane Hedengren does. What is she going to do this year? Is she going to continue to improve? If you remember, she's that young woman who has done incredible things, broke all the high school records, and is a freshman this year at BYU. Can she continue to get better? I don't know, but I'm really interested in watching that happen. There's a lady also in the UK named Ines Fitzgerald who is about the same age and has actually run a few seconds faster in some races than Jane has. And so it's going to be fun to see if those two maybe in the future develop some kind of a rivalry between them because they're again about the same age and they're both really, really special athletes. Another thing to look forward to this year is what is Josh Hoey going to do? I think he's coaching himself now, and he was at near the top of the 800-meter world stage this past year, and then he fired his coach. He went from being and also ran in the 800 meters to world class or one of the best in the world in the 800 meters almost overnight, and then fired his coach because his coach didn't want to push things a little bit further and a little bit harder. And we're going to wait and see, is that a good idea or a bad idea? It's going to be fascinating to watch because my gut tells me it was a bad idea, but who knows? Maybe Josh Hoey was a genius when he did that. Either way, I can't wait to see whether it's a flame out or it is something glorious. I can't wait to see it. Here's another question. What does Cole Hawker, Yared Naguse, and Grant Fisher do this year? Those guys are, they've had a special year the last couple of years, and it's going to be fun to see what happens with them this year. Do they experiment with other things without these major competitions coming up for them? Are they going to experiment? Maybe run some other distances and some other events? That would be fun to watch. I always like watching that, so I can't wait to see what those guys do. And then Athing Mu, she's the Olympic champion 800-meter runner from the United States that was on top of the world in the 800 meters. We looked at her and thought maybe one day she'll break that long-standing world record in the 800 meters. But she fired her coach, and she has not announced an association with another coach. And so I don't know what's going on with the thing. I don't think anybody does. And the question is she done? I think she might be, but I hope not. I hope to see her back, and we'll see if maybe we see some more of a thing this year. I hope we do. I'm sure I'm missing something really cool, but those are kind of the questions that I have kind of off the top of my head and that I want some answers to this year. I can't wait to see what happens with those. For me, personally, I have said this already. I'm going to say it again because I think it's good to have one really big goal for each year. And I mentioned this on the last podcast, but my goal this year is to chase the American record for the 60 to 64-year-old age group in the 2,000-meter steeplechase. I was running the 3,000-meter steeplechase in the past couple of years, and I was really not far off of American record pace. I didn't get it, but I wasn't far off, and the last time I tried, I missed it by 30 seconds or so, but in doing so, I actually fell in the middle of that race, tripped on a barrier and fell. It's going to be easier not to fall doing the 2,000-meter steeplechase because the barriers are 6 inches lower, and so I'm really looking forward to that, and the race is shorter. I would have been almost done by the time I fell in that last race, so I was 1,500 meters in when that happened. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to trying to do that. And the reason why I bring it up on this podcast is not to brag or anything like that. I just like to put a little pressure on myself by saying something in public. When you do that, when you go out in public and you say, I'm going to try this bold thing, it makes you work a little bit harder on it because you remember, hey, I put myself out there. Now I've got to back it up. And so when it comes time to go do that hard track workout that I don't want to do, I'm going to remember that I put myself out there, and now I have to do that hard workout because otherwise I'm not going to reach that goal that I have put myself out there for. So the other thing I'm going to do this year is I'm going to decrease my mileage because I feel like I need to get faster at the shorter distances. I think last year when I did the ultra marathons that I did, I don't regret doing that. I wanted to do that. It's been a bucket list thing for a long time. But I do think that it caused me to slow down more than I would have had I not done that by running all those longer, slower runs. And so I've got to try to get that back, try to get my speed back. And so I'm going to do that by decreasing my mileage and running shorter and faster in a lot of cases. What about you? What is your goal for this year? You should have one, even if you're a walker. You should have a goal of, I want to do, X number of steps a day, or I want to walk so many times for so many hours or whatever. But have a goal because I think goals drive us. And it's a good idea, again, to not just publicly put that goal out there, but also post that goal somewhere in your house where you have to pass by it. You see it regularly and it will encourage you. So it's just something to think about. And don't forget, also coming up in February is the Winter Olympics. It's not running related. I wish they would put a cross-country race in the Winter Olympics. That would be great. I think it fits in there. They can do it on snow if they want to, but I would love to see running in the Olympics. It is time for curling. Now, Debbie and I are big curling fans, so we'll be following the curling with some interest during this February. All right. How about a trivia question? Our trivia question for this week is a very, very simple one. I've asked this question before, but it's always a fun one to talk about. And so here's the question. Why is the marathon 26.2 miles? Why the 26.2? Why not just 25 miles? Why not 30 miles? Whatever. Why did it land on 26.2 miles? And if you know the answer to that, you can send that to dean@upward.org. And the first person to answer that correctly will win a prize. Our motivational thought of the week comes from that famous person, Anonymous. It goes this way. Running and walking is the meditation for people who can't sit still. That so defines me. I have a hard time sitting still, and running is a good way for me to get that out of myself. So maybe that's why I like to run, because it's good meditation. I do think well while I'm out there on the run. So, all right. I hope you guys have enjoyed this solo episode. And don't forget to join and to be a part of what we do, to support us, and to make sure that you're listening to this podcast every week and sharing it with others. And give us some ratings and all of that good stuff that helps the algorithm and helps people find us. Because the more people that find us, the more people who hopefully can find Christ in the long run. And until next week, may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
For more information about Upward Running, visit upwardrunning.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There is nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.